Welcome to the club. We're all unique and chosen by God. If you're African, your superpower is your black skin. Be proud.
Now, let's get to the video.
When people speak about great empires, they often speak as if those empires existed alone, as if the world moved in separate boxes, as if Africa was somewhere outside the story. But history doesn't work that way. While the Mughal Empire ruled vast lands in South Asia, Africa was not waiting. Africa was moving across deserts, across oceans, across ideas. This is not a story about Africa catching up to the world. It is a story about Africa already being inside it. Pause. During the 1500s and 1600s, Africa was a continent alive with movement. In West Africa, the Songhai Empire controlled one of the largest states the world had ever seen. Cities like Gao, Djenné, and Timbuktu were centers of administration, law, and learning. Timbuktu alone housed thousands of manuscripts, written by African scholars, copied by African hands, protected by African families. These were not borrowed ideas. They were African interpretations of global knowledge. Further east, Kanem-Bornu connected Saharan trade routes to the Nile world. Gold, salt, leather, and scholarship moved constantly. In the Horn of Africa, Ethiopia maintained diplomatic and religious ties with the Middle East and Asia, standing as one of the world's oldest continuous Christian civilizations. Africa was not isolated by geography. It was connected because of geography. And those connections did not stop at land. They continued into the sea. Pause. Question. If Africa had wealth, cities, and scholars, why is it often treated as if it entered global history late? Because the ocean stories are rarely told. Look at the waters surrounding Africa. The Indian Ocean to the east, the Atlantic to the west, and between them islands that shaped global movement. Along the Swahili coast, Zanzibar, Kilwa, and Mombasa were not peripheral ports. They were engines of trade. African sailors understood monsoon winds. They planned voyages to Arabia, Persia, and India with precision. Zanzibar became a living crossroads, African, Arab, Persian, and Indian worlds blending daily. Languages merged. Architecture adapted. Cultures formed something new. Further south, Madagascar tells a quiet but powerful story. Its people carry African and Southeast Asian ancestry, proof that Africa was already part of a transoceanic system long before Europe arrived. In the Atlantic, islands like Cape Verde and São Tomé became early global hubs, not empty lands but African spaces pulled into expanding world networks. These islands were not footnotes. They were gateways. Pause. Question. If Africans navigated oceans and shaped island societies, why are they rarely remembered as maritime people? Because the most challenging part of this history comes next. Here is something many people never hear. Africans lived inside the Mughal world, not only as laborers, not only as servants, but as soldiers, commanders, and governors. Africans known as Habshis or Sidis came from East Africa through Indian Ocean networks. They were valued for discipline, loyalty, and skill. Some rose through military ranks, some governed territories, some advised rulers. Falik Ambar, an African-born leader, reorganized armies, pioneered new military strategies, and resisted Mughal expansion in the Deccan. He was not symbolic, he was effective. Africans were not invisible in South Asia. They were part of its political reality. Pause. Question. What happens to history when Africans are seen not only as displaced people, but as strategists and leaders? To answer that, we must widen the lens again. Because Africa's story was unfolding in more than one direction. While Africans shaped courts and armies in Asia, another movement was happening across the Atlantic. During the same centuries, the Mughal Empire flourished. Millions of Africans were taken to the Americas. This was not migration, it was forced removal. Yet even in bondage, Africa survived. Memory lived in rhythm, belief lived in ritual, identity lived in community. Languages blended, spiritual systems adapted. Cultures transformed rather than disappeared. At the same time, in the Indian Ocean world, Africans navigated power, diplomacy, and mobility. Two African diasporas. Same centuries, very different realities. This matters because Africa cannot be reduced to one experience. Pause. Question. How does a people shape the world in completely different ways at the exact same moment in history? The answer lies in Africa's global role. Empires do not rise alone. They rise because resources move. Africa supplied gold that stabilized global trade. West African gold flowed through North Africa into international markets. African ivory, textiles, and agricultural knowledge entered Asian economies. African soldiers protected shipping routes and royal courts. While the Mughal Empire ruled land, Africa powered movement. Land and sea worked together. Africa was not peripheral, it was structural. Pause. Question. If Africa was economically essential, why is it remembered as marginal? Because something else traveled with Africans, something harder to track than gold. Ideas. Before borders mattered, ideas moved freely. In West Africa, scholars debated law, astronomy, mathematics, and theology. They wrote books, they taught students. Through Islam, African knowledge moved east across deserts, seas, and languages. Swahili scholars contributed African perspectives to global Islamic thought. They did not only receive knowledge, they shaped it. In the Mughal world, scholars traveled between Africa, Arabia, Persia, and India. Books moved with them. Reputations moved with them. This intellectual trust is one reason Africans were respected in courts. At the same time, Ethiopia stood as a reminder that Africa carried one of the world's oldest Christian traditions, connected to the Middle East, yet deeply African. Africa was trading ideas as much as goods. Pause. Question. What changes when Africa is recognized as a source of thought, not just labor? The final piece explains why this story was broken apart. Africans never moved empty-handed. Farmers carried agricultural knowledge. Metal workers carried techniques. Sailors carried understanding of winds and stars. Soldiers carried organization and strategy. These skills reshaped societies in Asia, on islands, and in the Americas. So why is this history told in fragments? Because later narratives separated Africa from Asia, separated islands from continents, separated diaspora from origin. This fragmentation made Africa appear passive. But the truth is simpler. Africa was always global. Reconnecting this story does not change the past, it restores its shape. Pause. Final question. If Africa was always part of the world's foundation, what does that mean for how Africa should be seen today? This is not about rewriting history. It is about remembering it whole. Africa was not waiting for the world. Africa was helping build it. Across land, across water, across generations. And this story is still being told.
Like, follow, and share this with every member of the club.